Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, it's Sejohn Sarowick. Yay!
Hey, buddy. Well, thank you for that introduction. I feel very welcome today.
Good, I'm glad. That was my Kermit. You don't see it because it's not an audio podcast, but I did the arms and everything. My bones are
Nope.
mad at me because I turned them to jelly, and it takes a long time to turn them back. I got the jelly bones. All right, so I got good stuff to talk about. I got bad stuff to talk about, and then I have ugly stuff to talk about this week on the Say Report. Let us start with the ugly, because I'm free, Sejohn. I've freed myself from the game after giving it what my PlayStation says is 36 hours of my time. That just can't be true, because I think the screen says I've only played for 18 hours, but who knows? We are leading today off
A
with
lot of pause.
yeah,
A lot of pause
pauses,
time there,
right, going
letting
to
the
the
game just kind of
restroom,
just sit in the background.
I don't know. Well, excuse me about that. Oh man, we're starting with Gal Guardian, Servants of the Dark. Dale and I did our due diligence to see if there is a panty collecting subquest, and I'm happy to say there's not. So
Okay.
I don't.
All right. At least not one to be found at the moment. The DLC later, maybe.
Perhaps
but
it
no. I
will
mean,
be
like,
added,
so
yeah.
so for anybody that is uninitiated here, what's the deal with this?
Okay, so 2023, as this was pointed out by Claude, right, when I told him that I was playing Gal Guardians the last 4 days of my life, he's like, is that a spinoff of those weird Gal Gun games where you shoot pheromones at high schoolers? Nailed it, Claude. Nailed it. Got a name check in this episode of the Say Report for nailing it. 2023, Inti Creates, they are a company, they did all the Mega Man Zero games, the Mega Man ZX games, and then most famously in my book, not that I didn't play those games, Mega Man ZX was the first Metroidvania that really took me over as a human being. I beat that game like 7 times in a row on my Nintendo DS.
I think it's been on sale on the Nintendo Switch store for the last couple of weeks. I was wondering why, and I guess maybe because of the connection to this.
Which one? The Zero games? Or?
ZX.
The ZX games have been on sale, that Zero ZX collection, because we're in the middle of the Capcom Spring Sale. So that's why a bunch of their games are cheap right now. Not Monster Hunter Wilds, unfortunately, because it's brandy new. But, you know, if you want to pick up the Mega Man collections, or the Mega Man X collections, I don't know if the Battle Chase ones, that's not what it's called. Battle Chase is a racing game. Rockman X, the ones where, like, it's Pokemon, kinda, but not really. Those have been on sale as well, I believe. But Capcom's having a huge sale right now. It might actually be what gets me into Dead Rising Remastered or Definitive Remaster or whatever. Because I think that's down to like less than $25. But no, so it's all, those are all Capcom games. These are just the company that created them. And that's what Inti Creates is. They're a production house. They're not a publication house. So they're the kind of company that you hire if you're Capcom to be like, we still want to make Mega Man games. You know, we want to release 5 Mega Man games a day, but we only have so many programmers. Why don't we outsource it to you? The games industry is fucking crazy. But that's not what today's
But they're devs
episode's
for
about.
hire. They're not necessarily doing their own thing.
They
like,
do a couple of their own
is it-
games too. Like the Gunvolt games are an in-house game that they do. And then you say devs for hire. That's exactly what I think of them as, because they were hired out when Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, it all connects people. All the Metroidvanias are one big map, and we're just looking for the proper abilities to fully explore them. When Bloodstained Ritual of the Night passed the Kickstarter goal to include an 8-bit version of the game, Inti Creates is the developers that they went to in order to create Curse of the Moon. Curse of the Moon is this fantastic game. It is a alternate history of the Bloodstained universe. The first one is good. The second one is incredible. Like, the same sort of lost myself to the game that I had with Gal Guardian, Servants of the Dark. Very good game. But then, because technically Bloodstained is owned by like a different company or things like that, they decided we're going to do our own in-house games. So they have the Gal Gun games, as mentioned earlier, which are like rail shooters where you use pheromones to turn on high school girls. Sejohn has mentioned them in the past when talking about the Grim Guardian thing because they make for good YouTube videos, I believe is the exact quote that you used.
Yeah, that's about all they were good for. Was I think what I was trying to get at is that essentially they're very good for a good like clickbait on YouTube, but beyond that, I don't know. I don't know if I could defend the merit of them as games much beyond that.
Right, exactly. They're also made in-house by Andy Crate. So then when it came time to... Now, again, this is mostly speculation, but Grim Guardians Demon Purge, the first game that came out in 2023, it felt like a spiritual successor to the Curse of the Moon games, but using characters from their in-house Galgun series. We're spinning off to create like actual platforming action-adventure games. We'll use these two characters from the Galgun games. We'll make them into demon hunters. Maybe it was in there before. I've never played a Galgun game. And they'll go into this castle. And it hit at a time where like Dale and I really needed a distraction. Our father's like health was in question. He was in and out of the hospital. So it was this lovely distraction when that first game came out. And we played it like crazy. We talked about it on an early episode of the show. I don't remember what episode exactly. Around February 2023, March 2023. If you want to go looking, I will have the information for next episode. I lost myself to this game, the sequel game, Gal Guardian Servants of the Dark. On this show, we found out in December that they were making a sequel to it, which seemed outlandish and crazy. But Grim Guardians, which was later changed to Gal Guardians because of an issue with the name, some other game called Grim. Honestly, I do not understand the games industry at all. Because like games can be the same, but names can't be the same. But then names can also be kind of the same. But like, because the Grim game that sued them was GRIMM. This game was Grim, GRIM, Guardians, Demon Purge. I don't think anybody's going to be confusing those two games.
I think really the key here is that this all comes back to this edgy like humor that this studio clearly tries to portray, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go one way or the other to talk about how it works for some people or whatever, but this idea is that they are edgy, right? And they are trying to be kind of funny with what they're doing with the semi, soft core-ness of their games and all that stuff, right? And so I'm sure that says that's part of that math for Grim,
that makes
right?
Sense, yeah.
Is them not wanting to be associated with not just another video game, but very particularly this type of video game, right? Because as we've mentioned, one of the final runs of the original Grim Guardians games is that you run around collecting high school girls' panties again.
Yes.
So like that it seeped into even this version of this game. So like we've had some discussions about this before, as Devon has pointed out, so we don't need to get back into them, but that is, I think, the key to all of this, right? Is that there's this edgy side to the studio for what they do, and they make some very bold choices in what they do for content in some of their games, and it clearly does well enough for them to continue this franchise, right? Like it's not like this was like a one-off thing. This is, as Devon has pointed out, something that's been going on through multiple game series and multiple types of games and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, like, the Mega Man ZX games, it's been a while since I played them, but I don't remember anything like underage high school girls' panties. So it is specifically with their in-house stuff. And also, you say this is what they do. As I talked about with, like, when did Metroidvanias get so fucking horny? Like, it is something that it seems to be in the DNA of Metroidvanias. I mean, even us on this show, our very first episode, we talked about the Shantae series, and those games are nothing but cheesecake. And honestly, one of Dale's complaints about the game, because we played through this game specifically to find out if there was another quest on the level of panty searching. Sejohn, before we go any further, do you have Steam open on your computer right now?
I mean, I can in like 2 seconds.
So if you could open up Steam and try to go to the discussion pages for Grim Guardians and Gal Guardians, I don't know what your settings are, but I would like to see if you get the same notification that I received when going to their discussion pages. Because it kind of threw me. Because one of my bigger problems with the Grim Guardians game having the secret third playthrough quest of collecting underage women's panties is the fact that the game's rating certainly did not reflect that. So it was one of those things where, like, I'm pretty sure it was rated T for teen, but when you get into that level, I mean, they are underage. Like, and it's not like proudly underage, but they're like, we're all in high school is said a bunch of times. And that feels like the kind of thing for the ESRB specifically that they would probably mark this game as mature or adults only. And what we had discussed with Grim Guardians was the fact that it kind of felt like trying to get shit past the radar by hiding it in like deep within the playthroughs of the game. I can't imagine
you
that.
You didn't get to this stuff until really, really deep within playing the game.
Yeah, so the game is one of those games that requires multiple playthroughs. A loop game, right? Like Ghosts and Goblins on the NES is like that. Apparently, the original Castlevania, you don't see the true ending until you've beaten it 2 times. I have that YouTube video saved. Like the truth of Castlevania is revealed on the second playthrough, and I just haven't watched it. I just don't bring myself to watch it because on some level, I'm like, I'd want to do it and see that, but I don't know. Maybe sometime this year if I'm looking for a game to play. But well, I don't even know if I'm going to be playing games anymore.
The discussion page is what you were talking about?
Yeah, so when going to the discussion page, I got a pretty big like disclaimer that came up about the game. And I was impressed by that disclaimer.
Discussion page on
so if you go to the store page,
oh yeah, view discussions.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know.
This game can some nudity or sexual content. The developer described the content like this: this game may contain content not appropriate for all ages, may not be appropriate for viewing at work. Some nudity or sexual content, general mature content.
Well, what is the game rated? Can you find that there? I think that should be on the store page.
Yep.
So what is the rating?
So, oh no, that's a different type of rating.
Oh, that's how many people are ruining it. It got review bombed, this game, mostly by Asian players, and people think that it might have to do with some political stuff. We're not going to get into that. But I don't think this game is rated M or AO, right? Like, I think it's teen. And then once you go into the discussions, you get that weird sort of disclaimer.
Yeah, I'm not getting, it's definitely not AO because I'm not getting anything like asking me to put my age stuff in when I come to the page. New website.
There we go. Look at that. Look at that. It's just important because I'm glad that you did what you did. You read the disclaimer that came up. I'm glad that it comes out for you. That means to me, not that I think that you're some sort of depraved person, but it does indicate to me that you don't have the settings on where, like, show me everything, Steam. Because Steam has a dark side, right? We can't deny that. I'm actually going to go to the Nintendo page yet. Rated T for teen, blood, fantasy, violence, mild language, partial nudity, suggestive themes. Mm-hmm. So it is T for teen, and the first one is T for teen. That's all important to know. Dale was playing the game with me. Originally, she's like, I don't want to give it any more of my time because of just how gross it was. But then she realized, no, you also need the female perspective of it because things that you might not view as exploitive, I may, through the lens of the fact that I'm a woman. Which is a good point because from the beginning, in this game, you play as demon maids. And so one of the reasons that she's like, I think I'm out right from the start is the fact that they are subservient to a male demon. And then all of the other servants are females and stuff like that. She's like, the optics on just the trailer make me nervous.
Well, so the world of Gal Guardians or Galgun and stuff definitely leans into, for people that are familiar with the genres of anime, it leans very much into the harem anime style concepts. A lot more female characters than male characters in general. A lot of the female characters are in subservient roles. Generally, it revolves around one male character, kind of attempting to be with multiple characters in various ways and things like that. So it's I mean, and a lot of these games will use this subgenre of anime as their backing because it just is ripe fruit for the plugging, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
grossest best way to put it.
You nailed it. Yeah. And we're actually going to save that part for it because that's a shining part of the game, despite the fact that there was a moment where I'm like, oh, I guess it's just a harem anime. but we'll get to that. So the thing that first hit Dale was something that happens in Shantae Half Genie Hero with the first boss. It is something that happens here. I think technically it's the second boss, though I will say, in terms of boss content, this Metroidvania was hyper light. You refight the former headmaid of the master's cat, the sire. They refer to him as Dear Sire. The former headmaid who betrayed him to sell him out to Lysanorg, the lightning demon of the demon realm, in order to absorb his power. And then Lysanorg, the whole game is that these two maids who are on vacation, Kirika and Masha, they return early from their vacation because they're so dedicated to the Overlord. I actually can't call him an overlord because that's a spoiler. The demon lord that they serve, Maxim Onslaught, they're so devoted to him that even they're like, we can't be on vacation anymore. I miss the master. I miss Dear Sire. But luckily they came back early because they were able to thwart an invasion of the castle by Lysanorg and his forces. And through thwarting that invasion of the castle, they ended up sparing the Maxim from being totally killed. They were able to save his skull. And so he's not technically dead, which means that Lysanorg has not succeeded in absorbing his power. But he has, in attacking him, spread his bones to the four corners of the demon's realm. And it is our job to go and collect Dear Sire's bones in order to help him rebuild his body. And now that's interesting from a gameplay perspective because the bones represent how you level up. Rather than collecting experience every time you kill an enemy, occasionally they'll drop a bone or you'll find a chest full of bones. You go back to Maxim's throne, you put them on the throne, and then your levels go up. And through your levels going up, it gives you more magic points to use, it gives you higher experience, and it makes you do more damage. Now, I'm bringing that up early on because a lot of people say that there's no leveling in the game. Now, yes, it takes a little bit before that activates. Before you find your first bone, you have to fight the former headmaid, and then you have to fight a large creature in the forest, which is right outside of the castle. So it's kind of about an hour, give or take, before you actually get to level up. But a lot of people are like, there's no leveling in this game. That's bullshit. I'm stuck this weak form this whole time. And it's like, oh, okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. No, there's leveling. It just takes a little bit to get going. But I will say,
currency based as opposed to experience based, which is not unusual for these types of games.
Exactly. The big issue, though, I'm gonna pepper it, and I'm just gonna tell it as it comes to my mind. Each area, each biome has a set number of bones that you can collect from enemies, which seems like a weird oversight in some way. Like, because yes, it blocks you. A lot of the ability, and this game stacks you with movement ability. By the end of the game, without any additional items, you can jump. You have a quintuple jump. You can jump up to 5 times in a row. And Whoa. You have 3 midair dashes. And then there are items that you collect that can add additional jumps and dashes.
Like these guys are not afraid to lean into the concept of the power fantasy, right?
Right.
Like that's like very much what they're willing to do here. And I'm like, I as somebody that's been replaying the Borderlands games currently, like I am a big fan of God mode. Like you get to a point where you're suddenly just breaking the game because of the abilities the game itself gave you, not by any mischievous move on your part. Like I love that kind of shit.
Yeah, it is without a doubt one of the best parts. Just moving and exploring the game is great. The weak thing is that in the former game, right, Grim Guardians, they were the same basic like character types, Maya and Shinobu. Maya used melee weapons, which is what Masha uses. She uses a whip where Maya used a sword, which that right there is Miriam with her whip from Curse of the Moon and Zangetsu with his sword. So, like, this whole spiritual successor thing really does feel like it has some merit to it, even though I can't find them ever admitting that that's basically what they're doing. But yes, so that's part of it. But as you played the game, every time you beat a boss in Grim Guardians, you were given more abilities. And those additional abilities made your character feel strong. There was also a shop where you could upgrade abilities and thus upgrade your character. Because, like, by the end of it, Shinobu, who's using a machine gun the same way that Kirika does, while you're shooting the machine gun, like she also fires missiles from the same gun. Like it's like a real, like the gun gets upgraded. So that never happens with Masha and Kirika. It is always, you can have like more ammo and you can have the bullets do more damage, but it never really, like Dale the whole time is complaining about the fact that why hasn't my whip gotten any better? Like I liked in the other game that my attacks got better. That hasn't done it.
Now, there was so you played this and you streamed it, and I watched for a few hours, and it was a good time there. But there was a mechanism for combining stuff that came into play.
There are sub weapons, and that's what takes over. The whole point of the game is that when you kill enemies, they can occasionally drop sub weapons, and they fall into like basic standard sub weapons in a Metroidvania. You get like the spider, the sword, the throwing weapon, things like that. And that is where all that comes from. Unfortunately, the way that the game is currently translated, and this is a huge issue, the translation. Like this game weirdly feels hyper polished, but also they missed out on the small details. You go into that synthesize thing, and synthesize or upgrade are the only two options. There's no option to select the sub-weapon, which is how you synthesize. So it never communicates to you that if you pick a weapon, you can add multiples of that weapon to it to make it stronger. There is a move skill thing, right? Because Borderlands is the right game to bring up from Sejohn on that one. Every sub-weapon, right? Like you'll pick up 4 spiders, and the second spider you get, it might, while it's equipped, give you a boost to your health. And the third one might give you a boost to your attack. So then, once you have enough money, you can go to the move skill. You could take that attack one and combine it with the one that also boosts your health. And then suddenly having that spider equipped will give you both the boost to health and attack. And each weapon can hold up to 4, I guess attributes is the best word to use for that, at a time. And there are some negative attributes like doubling the cost to use the weapon and things like that. So it's an interesting thing. It is without a doubt the new shining thing that they've added to this game is this really in-depth weapon synthesization and skill movement stuff. But it is so clunky to use. Like if we really played for 36 hours, as the PlayStation tells me I did, a lot of that is the fact that you're sitting in that clunky UI just trying to combine things. And it's not like, oh, I want to add stuff to this item, so I choose this item and then I can just add everything. You have to make sure that you pick that specific sub-weapon every time. And it just comes this game of like, oh, what if I mess up? And it got to a point where like, all right, I did this, I'm going to go save, just in case I screw up in the menu system.
Weird.
Yeah, but it was nice because like by the end of it, even though I was only doing about 20 damage per every bullet that I was using as Kirika, she had 240 bullets in her clip. So my DPS was pretty insane, to say the least. Like it worked. It made itself work, and I respect that. I'm excited about that. But it was this thing. So to get to the parts that didn't work for Dale, the very first like demon lord that you fight is a dragon woman, and she does the same thing as the mermaid from Shantae Half Genie Hero, where she grows to the size of the screen, and essentially what you are attacking to do damage is her décolletage. Also, she is essentially naked with scales in the bathing suit areas. So, but she's also a 500-year-old demon. Like, that part is mentioned. So she's not some underage dragon that you're fighting who's doing that. But it was one of those moments where Dale's like, see, like, why the fuck does this have to happen? Where is this? And I'm like, well, that is more why our Metroidvania is so fucking horny. That plays more into that trope that I've noticed lately, as opposed to, like, this game is trying to be hyper exploitive. The second one is that Maya and Shinobu are in the game. That was the thing that ultimately got us to play this game together, is the fact that the characters from the first game are NPCs in the new game. And I was hoping that, eventually you might get to play as them. But I haven't gotten the true ending of the game yet. I will say that. And we'll touch on that in a bit. But they're in the game, and that's exciting. And you fight them the first time as a boss, and then they realize that they're not enemies, so they have all these moments. And as you're exploring the world, you find them again. And Sejohn, if you had to guess the most common, most popular episode theme for a Japanese animated cartoon show, whatever, what would you say that it is?
Like of all time, or like is it like a type of episode?
It's a type of episode. It's an episode type that everybody kind of does.
The shower scene episode.
The shower scene, the sauna, the hot springs episode is what the trope is called.
The bath episode.
Yeah, the bath episode. Yeah.
There is a couple of famous ones from, I believe, Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z when we were growing up that were hotly tossed around amongst my peer group that were But yes, no, those pretty famously.
I like those I like those anime girls because they got the boom. Anime babes that make me think the wrong thing. I messed it up. Getting two or Sailor Moon because that Kakuna's got the boom. Anime babes that make me think the wrong thing. There we go. I got it right. The better naked ladies aren't mad at me now. But yeah, it's gotten to a point where like Black Clover did a Hot Springs episode, and it was satirizing the whole thing. Because it was men instead of women. And then the women are like, you're kidding me. We're doing a Hot Springs episode, like to break the fourth wall and things like that. Like it's become a big deal. And there is if you've heard of Gal Guardians outside of us talking about it, it's probably because of this Hot Springs scene that happens in the game, which again, Maya and Shinobu clearly still represented as underage women. Masha and Kirika, they're 500-year-old demons, but they act very infantilized, kind of like Ariana Grande's character in like Victorious.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's very much the anime special, right? It's like, oh, it's okay that this person that we're sexualizing this underage looking person because technically they're a 1,000-year-old demon god or something, right. And it's just like, yeah, that shit don't fly, man.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that dog don't hunt, baby. But yeah, so that happens, and the reason why I say that it's this big contested thing is that on the Nintendo, literally the Nintendo one, where they're showing this. The animation from that sequence, a still of it, is used, and they are all basically just covered by strategic hands and steam in certain areas, right? So you're not seeing anything. Then Sony and the PlayStation version, they use that same screenshot, but they're all wearing towels. And people are like, goddamn Sony freaking censoring our media again. And that's just weird to me because we played it on PlayStation, and when you get to that scene, they're not wearing towels. So it was a real nothing burger of a complaint. It was just more the fact that Sony was like, you know what, in the marketing, maybe we don't do this. Maybe we don't, show the partial nudity.
That's right. That's Sony recognizing that, hey, this marketing could end up anywhere, and so like if anybody could end up stumbling across this page, let's cover our ass. And like, yep, that's what companies do. I mean, like, this is not me saying like they should go out there like censoring stuff or lying to people about what they're getting into, but like, yeah, I'm not surprised that in the marketing for the game they decided to maybe not just throw the horniness out completely out there.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's supposed to be. And this is in like the game developers thing. It's like a reward for playing the game is to get to see this sequence. So like, also, why would you not in the marketing show this type of sequence exists, but then make it more salacious for the player, right? Like it's sort of marketing done right on a show where we often talk about how marketing goes the wrong direction. Just being honest people right here. So that whole thing happens, and that scene was like, Dale's like, I might be out. This is kind of gross. And it's like, honestly, we've been playing the game for a long time. Like at this point, we're like 10 hours in. I'm like, let's just finish it. Because we've also really been enjoying the game. I'm going to read a text message that I sent to Sejohn. I don't even know. On 3/27, so the day after it came out. It feels, this is easily my current game of the year. That could change if panties end up being collectible, but so far is the classic sequel situation where it just built on and made everything better. And in a weird way, it felt like they captured the same magic as going from Rondo of Blood to Symphony of the Night in the Castlevania series. And that is all true still. The way that Rondo of Blood existed, and then they literally just took all those character models and put them into a bigger map to explore. One of the most fun things about playing this as a sequel was stumbling upon enemies that we fought the first time through and seeing how they exist in the demon realm as opposed to how they existed when they came over to the earth realm. Like, it was really, really interesting.
Cool. I mean, it sounds like there is some solid, like, work here, like in terms of world building and game design and all of that sort of stuff. Like, they took a big swing with the power system in terms of not having you level up the way that you're expected to, but rather this whole other convoluted menu system, which, hey, I mean, as a guy that plays a shit ton of JRPGs and shit like that, like, menu heavy games do not scare me. I think that that's actually an interesting kind of motif to try and capture in this style of game. It's just I just don't care for the edgelord shit, man. And you know, this is 37-year-old me, right? Like I'm sure 25-year-old me would have had no problem with it. Would have gone to, you know, dove headfirst into these games and just laughed about it the whole time. But I'm just at a point now where I just can't get into the edgy shit anymore. It just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's just cringy, you know? It's like, unless I can see some true merit in it and some true like artistic like choice behind it, I just don't get it. I don't get why it's there. But, well, you know, this is probably just that thing where the older you get, you tend to get a little bit more conservative in some ideals, right?
So I will say this game, currently no longer my game of the year, like, nomination, is not as easy because it goes on way too long. At that point, like, where the hot spring thing, like, we had gotten to the fire area and we watched Lysanorg kill the demon lord that lived in the volcano, and then we're like, oh, okay, well, like, now it seems like we're getting to an end. He's collected all the demon lord souls. Let's go for it. We go to his castle. There's a barrier. So now we have to go to the Dead Sea in order to reclaim the soul of the only person who knows how to break that barrier. And the Dead Sea is a water temple. It is all about dealing with the height and level of the water. And honestly, the way that you have to solve the puzzle is really interesting, but we only stumbled upon it after about like an hour and a half of exploring by accident. Basically anything where you can make the water level rise, if you make it rise too much, it like short circuits the pump and ends up making it drain everything. So that's the way you have to solve the way to get to the soul that you're looking for. And and we figured that, we saw that, and I'm like, oh, I think I know what it is. And I did it, and it worked, and it made me happy. But it was like, that was one of those situations where, like, I could see a younger me getting frustrated. Like, yeah. And it's a thing where with the bones, eventually you get abilities, right? You get the jump abilities, but you also get the ability to have Sire punch through walls. And you find a lot of purple walls in the game that literally it's just you need to have the Sire punch. Also, that tutorial is broken. It does not show the buttons you have to press in order to do that. And they have said they've rolled out a patch for that. But that's crazy. Like, it's insane. Like, we're running around like, how do we do this? And the way to do it is to activate demon powers, which is to hold the right shoulder button, and then hit both of your sub-weapons at the same time. And if you're just a fraction off in doing that, you'll just use your sub-weapons. So this is where I first saw the disclaimer that you read earlier. Was I'm just going to the discussions. I bet that somebody is talking about this. And lo and behold, there it is. You don't need to worry about it. This is how you do it. So thank you. I appreciate it. So it's just a lot of weird things like that. But I did say I was saving a juicy bit. Maxim, the demon overlord that Kirika and Masha work for, and that, like, Masha is outwardly affectionate towards, and Kirika, like, keeps her emotions really close to the vest as, like, how much she's in love with him. He is the best boss that I have ever seen in, like, fiction. Like, he legitimately cares about his workers. He's not upset that he was killed just because, oh my God, this demon stuff. Like, he's like, how can I protect all of you people who keep my castle and life running? Every time there's a whole thing like that, finding the soul of the barrier person. It's kind of weird because one of the collectibles throughout the games is the souls of the other servants of Lord Maxim. And you're able to just find them like randomly in the world, bring them back to the castle and resurrect them. So it's strange that like this particular person's soul got dragged down to a specific part of the map. And now you have to find it that way before it gets quote unquote reincarnated into another form. Like, it's weird stuff that's going on in the game. But every time you find one of those servants and save them, like, Maxim is like, I'm sorry that this happened to you. It happened on my watch. Please do not blame yourself for this. Like, he's got real accountability for a demon lord, and that really works for me in terms of, like, subversion of character. Like, it's not one of these things where, oh, we're serving a demon. But, like, yeah, but we're serving a demon, but that not all demons are assholes.
Well, especially, I mean, not to get too weeby on this shit, like, but to talk about, like, the ways in which we talk about devils and demons and stuff in our culture versus other cultures around the world, right? And this is clearly aiming itself to be, considered in a particular Eastern culture of this in this world, right? Like, so there's something to be said about that, right? About the ways in which we portray demons is a little bit different than one would expect anyway.
Right.
But that's, I mean, no, it's fun. I mean, like, that is a really fun choice, though, still to make.
And then, spoilers, this is for the end of the game. The reveal of that why Lysanorg attacked Maxim in the first place is that Maxim is this prophesized demon that every 666 years a demon will ascend to the rank of demon overlord so they could rule all of them. And Maxim's like, oh yeah, no, I know that about me, but I destroyed all the paperwork about it because I want to earn the right to like rule demons and be things like that. I don't want to just hand it to me because of some fucking prophecy. And like, so like they even do like a lot of stuff to like really humanize him and make him this self-made demonic man where like Lysanorg just wants to steal that from him. It's impressive storytelling. I just wish that the game was maybe 3 biomes shorter than it is. Cause like even then, once you break that barrier, it's a whole other biome you go to before you get to Lysanorg's castle. And I will give credit where credit's due. That fight was awesome. Because Lysanorg's castle was designed by Howl, which is to say it's a moving castle. And in order to get into that castle, you have to fight it. Nice. And I wish that boss fight were better. But really, it's just like a gauntlet, kill all the enemies, and then you'll have a chance to wound the castle and do that 3 times. But if it were like full on, we gotta fight this castle and kill its mobility, that would have been a lot cooler than like survive until the weak spot opens and then hit the weak spot. And then even then, Lysanorg's castle is a full on biome that you have to explore. Like the game it went on a little too long. And that's been like, that is me. 100% Devon Decker getting older, understanding that video games are too long for me. Like, I like a nice tight experience. This feels like padding. You were on a good pace, and then you're like, go to the underworld of the underworld. And then on that point, that was the other thing. And this is like last complaint. Then we'll move on. We'll talk about this stuff. We've already given this almost 40 minutes. Once you get to the underworld, the gauntlet fight there, because that's what it is. There are some really interesting boss fights in the game, but mostly each biome, the final fight before you move on to the next biome, is another one of those gauntlet battles where you fight a bunch of enemies who have been infected by the Master's bones, and then you need to defeat them. So they're a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, and then you defeat them to get like a cache of bones to go turn in. And that is lame, right? Like, it'd be cool if there was something that we actually fought in the Cursed Caverns rather than just a bunch of the same spiders and things that we've already been fighting, just they're moving a little bit faster. But when you do that in the Sea of the Dead, the fast travel system is 100% Karen, like the oarsmen of the River Styx, but instead they're a tribe called Karen, and they are all, kind of like Nurse Jenny, Officer Jenny, Nurse Joy in Pokemon, they all look the same, but their ores are decorated differently. That's how you can tell them apart from each other. It's a really like good storytelling mechanic. When you save them in the Sea of the Dead, they're like, oh, thank you so much for that. Now we'll let you travel with us for free. Because it used to cost 50 coins in order to travel.
Yeah.
But like to give me that in the second to last area is like, I wish it were. I know that I complained in Guns of Fury that everyone's like, why can't you fast travel everywhere? In Gal Guardian Servants of the Dark, you can travel back to the castle from any save point, but then you have to get back to where you were. Eventually you unlock Karen, so you can travel to the Karen locations, but it's not one of those things where like you can jump back to that save point you were at. If you go back to the castle, you have to physically get back to where you were when you saved. And that's like, I love the fact that I can go back to the castle at any time, but then the fact that I can't go back to where I was, that seems a little... So it becomes a thing of like, all right, so we saved, now we need to find the Karen location so we can go back to the castle, level up our characters, and then we'll get back to where the save point was. Because like, it's very obvious that the next room is going to be a bigger battle. It's one of those situations. So yeah, we want to level up before we do that. But Karen is 7 rooms the other direction from where we are. So just like that, it's just some like weird design choices. Again, they give you so much movement tech and it's beautiful to do it. But overall, I mean, I would say if you like a good Metroidvania and you can get over the edgelord stuff that Sejohn was talking about, Gal Guardian Servants of the Dark is a really good Metroidvania. Understand that it is a bit longer than your standard Metroidvania. It's not one of these games where eventually they want you to be able to beat it in like under 2 hours to unlock some achievement. It is a big game. So just know that going in. But also, wait until there's a sale. I don't think it's worth the $30 price tag that it currently has. It's just not polished enough at this time. Maybe if they fix the tutorials, maybe if they fix like some of the menuing so that it's a little bit more intuitive and not so much of a slog to menu, then the game might be worth it. But in its current state, 1.1.4b, the game is not worth $30. But I had a blast playing it until the fact that I still haven't gotten the true ending, because I need to find 15 more bones. And we've completed the map, so I have no idea where those 15 bones are. And by all accounts, it could be the fact that we reached the cap on bones, which is 99 bones, and then collected those 15 bones, and now they're just lost to the ether.
Ugh, that sucks.
Yeah, right? So, who knows? But that's Gal Guardian Servants of the Dark. I've been calling it Grim Guardians 2. It's the reason why this is the Grim Guardians 2 report. Sejohn, what'd you do over the last week?
Holy shit, man. Okay. Well, sorry, that was just that was a lot of info about a game
really
that I
was.
honestly didn't think we were going to spend much time on.
I can't believe 40 minutes went by. I'm sorry.
No. I'm impressed. I'm glad that it had something worth talking about in it, because it means that it wasn't all for naught that you spent 36 hours in it this week. But no, I did a little TV watching this week. I actually watched through an entire series this week, Dev. Or at least the current existing state of a series.
Before we go any further on that, how many episodes is that?
8 episodes.
Okay,
of
not
this
bad. That's
particular
not
show.
bad. I just want to, it's one thing to be like, I watched all of Breaking Bad, or I watched all of Peep Show. Those are two done series that have 9 seasons, but that means a lot of a difference to other people. So what show is this, Siege?
Well, so Hulu has announced that they are giving Dan Fogelman season 2. Dan Fogelman of This Is Us fame, giving him a season 2 on his weird mystery thriller sci-fi show, Paradise. Starring Sterling K. Brown, coming from This Is Us, working with him again, and one James Marsden doing the fucking best acting of his life. Julianne Nicholson is in this one. John Beavers, for anybody that knows any some weird polls for some good heavies. Yeah, so it's It's weird because the show is a mystery show, and it is first and foremost a murder mystery. That is the concept, is that you're trying to figure out who a killer is the entire time. But layered onto that is this political aspect of it, because I don't think it's going to be giving too much away anything that happens in the first 5 minutes, but there is some big twisty turny stuff that happens in the series that I'm going to try to avoid because I think people need to just see this shit for themselves. But it's the president. The president gets murdered, and so it's a murder mystery show with a political thriller layered on top because the murder victim is the president of the United States. Sterling K. Brown plays the head of his Secret Service and is his like personal bodyguard, so of course feels like hugely responsible for what has happened and wants to figure out why this has happened, right? But there's a lot of other twists and turns that make it so that their relationship was not necessarily on great terms. They were like best fucking friends, and then suddenly like something happens and they're suddenly not anymore. But James Marsden and Sterling K. Brown playing off of each other. James Marsden playing President Cal Bradford, who then is murdered. But we get to see a lot of the way that it is told is very flashback heavy. You're getting a lot of stuff that happened on the day of the murder. You're getting a lot of stuff that happened on the days leading up to other situations and other things. Like, so the biggest thing about this show, and you will find this if you Google it, is that it is a sci-fi thriller. So there is something that happens in the last literally 30 seconds of the first episode, an hour-long episode of Hulu like television watching, and in the last 30 seconds, they throw a huge fucking curveball at you that is just like, what the fuck is this? Because it layers on a third genre, and that's the sci-fi aspect. So there's just this whole like weird twist to it, and it's 8 episodes long. It does a really good job of world building, and what I mean by that in this particular case is there are things that you learn later that going back and watching any good mystery show does this well.
Yep.
You see those things again and you realize, oh shit, that was there the whole time, right? Or there's a good moment where a scene pops up or rolls into a scene you've already seen but from somebody else's perspective and things like that. Like really good filmmaking in that way. But the real secret sauce of this show is that these guys are just acting the fucking shit out of it. Julianne Nicholson, Sterling K. Brown, and James Marsden are really the three big like heavies for the whole show, and they are all putting on some of the best performances I have ever fucking seen out of them for a pretty batshit insane show. I mean, a show that gets that every episode ends with a huge twist, right? Because they want you to come back. They did, I believe, they did release this one weekly, so they wanted you to keep coming back. They were, they always gave you previously ons to make sure that you knew exactly what you were supposed to be paying attention to. As far as the mystery aspect goes, the season is all out. It has been out for about a year. They just announced a season 2, but they do solve the mystery of season 1. So, but they leave a pretty clear opening for what season 2 is clearly going to be about. I wonder if they're going to try and keep up the mystery aspect of it. Be ashamed to lose it because it was a really good way to pull us through this whole season. Is trying to figure out who killed President Cal Bradford was like kind of like the who killed Laura Palmer of the show, which I would not doubt if Twin Peaks was a somewhat influential part of this because every side character gets like really cool like isms about them, right? Like there's like weird stuff that they all do that you kind of get used to seeing in scenes, and you realize there's affecting stuff in certain areas, and like the ways that people behave become more justified once you learn more about their backstories and things like this. Like there's this layering of storytelling going on that honestly I don't know why I would be surprised. I mean, because that's the bread and butter of what This Is Us was with Dan
Right.
Fogelman, right? Like his the layering of stories and learning more about people and learning about the why people are the way that they are, and doing complete 180s on people. Sometimes loving people and then learning that you actually don't like them so much, or vice versa. Like not liking somebody in the beginning, but then finding out later on all these deep things about them and realizing they're actually really meaningful in certain ways. Like so he applies that to this just batshit nuts sci-fi thriller political story. It is fucking crazy. But Sterling K. Brown, just a fucking badass also. I want to see him do more action heavy stuff. It's not a action show, I wouldn't call it that, but he gets a couple of moments of being a badass because I mean he's the head of the president's Secret Service, right? So like
Yeah.
he's personal detail, like he's just a badass, and it's so good. It's so much fun. But yeah, blasted through it in a week and like couldn't stop watching type stuff. Now I'm like trying to tell everybody about it.
Excellent, because I've been interested. You've sold me on it. First things first. It premiered in January of this year, ended March 4th of this year. So it's not.
Oh, cool.
It's only about like 3 months old.
I thought it was a year old at this point. Cool.
Yeah. So so just covering that. Second, Dan Fogelman comes to turn out probably one of my favorite writers in Hollywood right now. I'm going to just run the list
Disney
of things I'm looking at. Well, first of all, Fred Claus, movie beloved by this show that we will never cover. Apologies. Then he did Bolt, which Bolt is a secret, incredible Disney film.
Yes,
I fucking love
film.
Bolt. Then he did the screenplay for Tangled, and then he jumps over to live action stuff. Crazy Stupid Love, which was one of my top 10 favorite movies of 2011. I cannot say anything more about Crazy Stupid Love. If you haven't seen Crazy Stupid Love, stop listening to this and go watch it.
That's the Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell double,
yes,
right?
Yeah. And Julianne Moore, and God, I can't even say any more about it. Go see Crazy Stupid Love.
It's one of the Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone movies.
Yes, Emma Stone's in it too.
Don't they have like 2 or 3 movies together?
Yeah. So that movie's incredible. And then he did Las Vegas, which was one of my New Year's Eve movies. That's how I used to celebrate New Year's Eve. Danny Collins, the Al Pacino movie that I have a huge poster of. And then that's the last big one. But then he also did stuff like Grandfathered, Gallivant. Like This Is Us is what made him famous, but he was doing some work beforehand. So I'm at in paradise. I have some stuff to catch up on. I've been playing a video game, right? So I didn't use NCAA March Madness season the way I usually do, which is to catch up on all the shows I'm behind on. But once we get back to it, I will definitely add this into the rotation because it's something I've been interested in.
Curious to hear your feelings. I'm really curious to hear your feelings on the soundtrack in particular, because there are some particular choices made with the soundtrack, like some patterns that are chosen that they kind of fall into that I loved. I was watching along with some people that were a little kind of like, all right, I don't know if they can keep this up 8 episodes in a row with this like music choice stuff that they're doing. And I'm like, nah, I'm all for it. I eat this shit up. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say about just the soundtrack alone.
Just to pause for a second, we both went through the heavenly debacle that was What's New, Pussycat? Whoa, whoa, whoa. In that weird fat pig sound design. Mm-hmm. Let's just use 7 different versions of that song. That won't drive anybody crazy. Yeah. Here's the last thing, though. You touched on a lot of people who are in Paradise, but third build is Sarah Shahi. That's all I needed to hear. I love Sarah Shahi. I'm really sad her Nancy Drew never happened, but her work in Person of Interest was incredible. I wish that Black Adam as the mom who had to be responsible for Black Adam was really great.
Fuck yeah.
Then she had that weird show. It was after Person of Interest. Oh, she was in Pitch, which was another Dan Fogelman show. But the one, was it Reverie? She did a show where it was, is it Divine Access? Maybe it's Divine Access. Nope. She was in some show where it was one of those fake worlds, it's all a simulation, and she had to go in and solve murderers there. I do not remember. Is it Reverie? Yes, that's exactly it. A former hostage negotiator takes a job retrieving people who are lost in a virtual reality program. That show was terrible. It only had 10 episodes, but she gave 1,000% in it. So memorable that I forgot the title of it. But yeah. So all I need to know is Sarah Shahi in it, and I would have come running for Paradise. So that will definitely be watched, and we will give it more time once it's had a little bit more time to gestate and for people to watch it. If it were a year old, I would binge right through it, and I'd say we could have a conversation next week. But let's give it a little bit of time to have people catch up. Maybe May we're busy. In June we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
It picks up. I think it's got potential to be one of those shows where, especially because they say that they've got a 3-season plan in place, they know what they want to do for 3 seasons, and so if that's the case, then I am fully on board for a season 2, and I hope that they get the chance to do their 3-season story and all that.
I mean, that's one of the things that I will definitely celebrate about Dan Fogelman is that he does seem to always have a plan going into the shows.
Yeah.
So I commit to that as well. That's exciting. Anything else that you did this week before we turn it broader?
Let's go back to some of your stuff. I mean, there's all sorts of weird stuff this week. I invested in a couple of smaller games on my Switch. I
Nice.
grabbed Backpack Hero. Have you seen this yet? I had the
I
demo for a while on Steam, and I finally grabbed it on Switch, the final version,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate because I it's much more convoluted now. I don't know. So Backpack Hero is a roguelite where you are going into a map style, like it's not, you don't really move around a map. You pick rooms and you just transport to them, you teleport to them, and then whatever's in that room you kind of deal with. That room might be a shop, it might be a fight, it might be an event of some kind. But it's not big on like the movement mechanics. There's nothing really to be done there. The big mechanic of the whole thing is that you're building your backpack as you go. And as you build space in your backpack, you can put more stuff in it, and stuff can affect other things in the backpack. So if you get like a helmet and you make sure that you put it above a pair of boots, you might get a +2 to your defense, right? Like because and it always has to be above the boots in the backpack. So you have to figure out how to pack your backpack in the right way in order to like get through the dungeon. Really fun concept, and the demo for it was a blast because you just jumped in, go, you could get pretty far. I felt like I was really laying like some good groundwork for like what the game could be and things like that. Like it was just a badass demo, and the full game now is out, and it's like they've added 3 characters to it. Each character has different mechanics to it. There's a story mode, there's a classic mode, there's a classic story mode. There's like there really is like, and I think it's not that there's too much in the game. It's that they just throw you the fuck in. If they had given you the opportunity to play a couple of rounds of like you do with the demo first, and then said, okay, this is where we suggest you start, unlock this stuff later, don't even pay attention to this right now, it's going to be too much for you. If they had guided me through the process a little bit more, I wouldn't have felt so overwhelmed when I first started playing it. But like they basically give you access to anything and everything right up front. You can just go, and they don't explain too much about what's going on, which is a shame because I think that there's a lot really going on that's really fun.
I remember you mentioning the demo of Backpack Hero, so I played the demo of it, and I finished the demo for whatever that means. Like I got to the point where they're like, "Thank you for enjoying the demo," and I will say it was a unique concept. It definitely sold me, but then it just kind of fell off, right? Because I think I played that demo like 4 years ago. Like I don't know when it came out, but I remember you saying you got to try the Backpack Hero demo. I'm very interested in what you have to say about it. And I remember enjoying it, but like what you just described, Sejohn, is like the problem with gaming is that like just sell me on the small concept thing that works. Why are you trying to make it everything all at once? Like it's this really strange thing that's going on. Like why do I need more characters? If you want to add characters later on, or if I unlock characters after I complete the game, that's different. But you're saying you load up the game and you can choose from one of 4 characters? Like that's how it's built?
Well, and yeah, so there's just one of 4 characters that it says that you can choose. It's not very clear what the difference is with each character. So one, for instance, so there's a base model one where you have a series of blocks, and then you have the ability to pick squares around that block to make it bigger in order to get more room in your backpack, right?
Okay.
Well, there's this other character that I decided to play as just because I was like, okay, I need to at least see what the hell is up with other, like what do these other characters have that this one doesn't. Well, like hugely different mechanic because the way that they build their backpack is they're given like Tetris pieces, and they don't have to fit together. It's what they call in game, they call it a pocket system. So it's a completely different system of building your backpack out. So it was like almost a completely different game. Like I was just like, oh, okay. And so like depending on how you connect the pockets depends on how the different powers can work. Because as I said, there's a lot of stuff that is dependent on being like, if this is next to a weapon, that weapon gets poison damage, or if this is in the same thing as like your food, it's going to get eaten. So don't put it there. Like there's like stuff like that you need to think about. And if the pockets are not connected, it completely changes the ways in which those things can work. So again, a whole different fucking game essentially, which was interesting as somebody that's been playing the demo for 4 years, as you pointed out. But like I still wanted to just play the game. Like I was like,
Right.
holy shit,
Right.
this is not what I wanted at all. So like there is a story mode to it that I have not touched yet because I've just been playing quick games just to try and learn a bunch about the game. And maybe that's my mistake, is maybe I need to play the story mode and maybe it will kind of ease me more into this stuff. But again, they don't push me towards playing the story mode. They're just like, hey, an option that you have to you is you can turn on story mode if you want. And it's just like, okay, I mean, like if that's not necessarily the first thing I have to do though, I'm gonna see what else is going on. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll dive into the story mode and see if it eases me into stuff a little bit better.
Jeez. Okay. I mean, that's interesting because it did work for me, but I also get that, like, I feel like games are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like, but you had something that worked here for what it was. I don't know. And that is like, and again, maybe that is it. Like you said that like the backpack is the thing. So like the exploration is secondary. So you're like, it feels like a different game. It feels like you're playing the Tetris version of Backpack Hero. I don't know. That's it's strange. It's just I don't know what other little
Which,
stuff.
again,
yeah.
I'm not like I'm not opposed to getting more game for my dollar, right? Like
Right.
it's not that I think that there's too much altogether in the package, but rather just too much at fucking once. Like not only are games getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but they want to sell you. They have to sell you in the first 3 hours. Otherwise, you can return it on Steam and get your money back for nothing, right? So, like, they need to show you in those first 3 hours why you need to keep playing this game. And in order to do that, a lot of games have just decided, look, we're just going to show you everything, and it's overwhelming for me, and it's too much sometimes.
Yeah. No, and I get that. And I want to make sure that you understand. I understand that. I'm not judging on that. But then look at something like Vampire Survivors, where you start with one character and you show that you can buy 3 other characters. And now there are like something like 200 characters in Vampire Survivors. And
Yes,
it like,
yes.
like that was an evolving game, but I had that character that I kind of like perfected how to use before finding other things. If the first time through you have to play Backpack Hero the way that it was in the demo, and then after you finally complete a run as that or get far enough in a run as that, you unlock the ability to use a different hero. That's more engaging to me. There's a dopamine release in finding, oh my god, I found a new character. And I don't know, there could be 200 characters in Backpack Hero. I mean, that seems like a lot of
that's
different
true.
like thing. Like you don't
No,
know.
yeah.
You haven't unlocked anybody. Who knows? Maybe it is very similar to that. But giving you 4 choices from the beginning, like it's almost a paralyzation of that choice, right? It's the ROM emulation problem where like if a game doesn't sell you in the first 10 minutes, you can just go and play another game. So a lot of these games that really didn't get a lot of play on like the NES or the Super Nintendo, they're still not getting play even though their availability is so much wider and grander because you have that like, oh, I'm just going to go play something else, right? And then you have other games like UFO 50 from last year where they play into that. Where like, yeah, you can play any of these games and if you don't like it, you can play something else. But then in playing something else, you find like some character that was in the other games, you're like, well, now I gotta go back to that game, right? Like, they exploited that, but again, that evolving game with you. And it just seems like, based on what you've described so far, Backpack Hero does not have that evolutionary hook because it gave you a fully completed world from the beginning.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, I've only been playing the game for a week, so maybe there's
Yeah.
something I'm missing. But right now it's a little bit of a disappointment for the full release.
Right. And you are still playing it, though, right? It's not like you've completely walked away, so...
No,
Yeah.
I have not completely walked away from it too. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the other thing. So it's triggering something that's having you come back. But I also, as somebody who played that original, I think it was on Itch.io, right? Or Itch.io, I'm not sure how you're supposed to say it. I remember playing
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I remember playing the demo and being like, this is really good. Like, I'm impressed by this. I'm excited to see once it's a full game. And now it's a shame to hear that as somebody who's played the full game that it less than delivered for you. That's a shame. Sejohn, we got to talk about Target Circle Week and Holothon and all the bullshit.
Target Circle Week.
Target Circle Week! Which I had my whole world shattered yesterday because of Target Circle Week. I felt so bad for the people who worked at Target a year ago when it was Target Circle Week because legitimately every single place you were, Either the PA or in the electronics department, everywhere was Kristen Wiig's Target employee character saying, "It's Target Circle Week!" And I said that, I'm like, it's weird this year. Like, I feel like it happened a month earlier than it did last year. So, like, it doesn't even matter when Target Circle Week is. It's whenever they say it is. But at least you guys...
I mean, it's like the McRib. Whenever the pork futures go down enough, then we get Target Circle Week. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, but at least you guys weren't over inundated with Kristen Wiig this year. And the cashier's like, I don't know who that is. And I'm like, oh, well, congratulations, because... like, how long have you worked here? And she said, I'm like, oh, last year, it was, like, everywhere. She was everywhere, to the fact that, like, as a shopper, I was annoyed by it. And I'm like, I remember when I worked at Walmart and the things that would happen, like, over and over and over. You would judge your day by, like, oh, that's the 18th time I only have an hour left before I go home. So it was nice. I'm glad that didn't happen. But... we're not going to give this one a lot of oxygen on this one. I'm going to be honest here. But Target Haulathon, right? So, like, NECA's big, we're releasing a bunch of figures exclusively at Target celebration. Right. They announced on Monday that it starts on April 11th. But you know it started showing up in stores the Friday before this Monday? So, the 21st of March? Yeah, that worked out. Oh,
God.
Was all of the product that they were like, we're going to reveal on Monday what you can buy starting April 11th.
Showing that they have learned fucking nothing.
Right, because it's exactly what happened last year. But now all of this product is in Target during Target Circle Week, which means that if you find this product, you're going to be able to get it at pretty good discounts if you're a Target Circle member. So it became part of my goal to just find one of these figures during Target Circle Week. So I was in Target every day this week except for Thursday, and that's because I was exhausted from playing the Gal Guardians game, because it was an 8 p.m. on Wednesday release. I love it. I want them to keep doing stuff like that, but weird time to release a game at like 8 p.m. I don't know where it was midnight in the world at that time, but it was nice because I could start playing the game, and we played till 3 a.m. and I was too exhausted on Thursday to go to Target. So I went to Target every day, and it was a failure every single day. So then yesterday, Saturday morning, I'm like, I'm getting up early. I'm going to all the Targets that are like a drive away, and all I got to do is find one item. So I go to the Dartmouth Target, nothing. I go to the Taunton Target, less than nothing. Like, NECA feels like they're in hot water because their product used to be like clogging the shelves at Target, and now there's like nothing on them. And like, we've done one of those mystery boxes, right? Like, so I think that they just bought all the stuff back from Target and now they're throwing them in the mystery boxes like I opened at Christmas time. But it looks just like all they have is Funko Pops now in the collector area. And it's that question of like, do you want old products sitting on the shelf so that people think, oh, I can go and buy it, even if it'll never clearance? Or do you like just want no presence in these stores? Because people are mad at NECA. The whole thing with the Donatella's Lab, where they sent out a $300 product to people who didn't order it and then threatened to charge them if they didn't send it back to them. NECA don't have the best face right now. And a lot of people are calling for boycotts. I don't know what Walmarts look like around you, but around me, the Walmart sections where there's NECA product, they're overflowing with product to the fact that it looks like it has no value at all. And that's just...
Yeah, it's the Walmarts out here, they are overloaded, and it's always just like one or two toys that they're overloaded with. So like it's that clearly nobody's buying them, but also part of it seems to be that we're not getting the most variety of different things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all I know is that for a long time, the Walmart at the Midland Mall, which is the Rhode Island Mall, I just don't know why I call it the Midland Mall. That's what it was called my whole life. Despite it only being the Rhode Island Mall my whole life. Local references, I'm sorry. They have conservatively 15 April as the Bride of Frankenstein figures on one end cap, and they are $25, reduced in price from $35, and they're still not moving. And they've been there for like a year. conservatively. But then also, what I'm seeing at ones around me are the 2-pack of the original sketch turtles by Eastman and Laird. They're black and white with red bandanas. Like no less than 5 of those at locations. And then they have Casey Jones with a dirt bike. Because I remember that scene from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990s movie where Casey Jones rode a dirt bike. Neither do I. Or the 2-pack of Shredder and Leonardo, Battle Damage Leonardo from the first movie. And I'm talking like 20 of those just piled up in the collectible section in the electronics department. It's not a great look for the product. And then I do have a theory that maybe some of the NECA products, because they're not supposed to be clearanced out, right? NECA sets those products. Essentially, they're in the Target stores on consignment, which is so crazy to think of, right? Because they have NECA reps who come out and are supposed to stock those sections and all of that. But I don't think that happens around here. But it's one of those situations, right? And all the stuff was missing, and I wondered if they had to take all of it off the shelves for Target Circle Week so that people couldn't get the stuff at less than the MSRP. But luckily, Easton Target, which is kind of my savior Target, last year it's where I found the Stump Wrestling Turtles before they started clogging up the shelves. I'm like, this is the last one I'm checking today. I'm in Easton, Massachusetts. I'm about an hour from home. I have some errands I need to run today. I'm going to go in. I'm going to see if they have it. And lo and behold, not only did they have Cartoon Shredder Ultimate Edition and Cartoon Dark Leonardo. Have you seen Dark Leonardo?
No, I have not.
I want you to Google Dark Leonardo. The Dark Turtles from the Saturday morning cartoon stuff, I'm a pretty big fan of, and I'm happy that I was able to get one of them in plastic form. But they also had a whole haul-a-thon like display that also had Beetlejuice from Beetlejuice in it. They had Michael Myers, an Ultimate Michael Myers figure. They didn't have any Count Von Count figures, which was a bit of a disappointment. I'll admit that. Because I want to get one of these Sesame Street characters. And for a long time, I was holding out for Ernie. But I think Count Von Count is a bigger like desire for me. Really, I'm just hoping to hold up hope until Harry Monster comes out. Because if I'm only getting one, It's got to be Harry Monster. I love Harry Monster.
But, all right, man. But, yeah, Saturday morning, this Saturday morning adventures version.
Yeah, they did a toon version of him that some people are calling a conceptual figure, but like no, it's just the figure from the comic book. He's gorgeous, and he has like Playmate style swords and that. So I did find him. I picked him up, and then because it was Turkish Circle Week, I saved $10 off of each figure. Nice. So like this is brand new stock and that whole thing, but it is that same, like we did not learn anything because the product that we're having a big reveal for on Monday is already sold out in a lot of these stores. Weird. Yeah, it's just a strange thing. So, and I had been happy. I'd been like good. Like I'm like, oh, I don't have any drive or desire to collect anything. But then I'm like, but I really want this Dark Leonardo, and I want a good Shredder, and the Shredder is beautiful. God, the ultimate Shredder. I'll never need another Toon style Shredder again. And that makes me very happy. But like going to all these stores and not finding anything, it was starting to awaken some demons inside of me related to collecting. So I'm happy I was able to squash that. But I do understand that it was kind of a perfect storm of collector desire with the fact that if you find these during this one random week that is Target Circle Week where the pork futures are down, like you'll be able to get new product for the price that it kind of should be. Because NEC has been like creeping up. All like toys are a luxury, and I understand that. And as a result of toys being a luxury, prices have been creeping up to the fact that now don't buy a toy when it's new. Wait until a Target Circle Week or it goes on clearance. I got a He-Man set that is Prince Adam, really looking like he does in the What's Up video from YouTube. Remember early YouTube? What's going on video? So that version of He-Man with Cringer, the cat that will become Battle Cat through the power of Grayskull, that was a $50 set. I got it for $14 yesterday. All I had to do was wait for a year when all the people who really wanted it at the beginning had already bought it. But then, like, there's not a lot of draw to that exact situation once the
Yep.
people who want it have it. So it sits on the shelves, it takes up space until they're like, we're going to clearance this out. I've gotten G.I. Joe classified figures for $7. The $30 figures. Like, don't buy stuff new. Wait. I'm happy. I'm happy that I've kind of weaned myself off of my collecting abilities, even though it's still a thing we're going to talk about on the show probably, because A, it's everything, but also B, why has Target not learned their lessons yet?
I don't know, man. I mean, Target's up shit's creek anyway because they've got their own boycott problems. You know, you talked about NECA getting boycotted because of the ways that they've been treating people. Target's also kind of in its own boat in that regard, and so I don't know. They're just everybody's kind of lost at sea right now. So I'm not gonna like swing too hard here, but like, yeah, Target's in a bad way as well.
I don't know. I just like the only thing I like about Target is that they're open early, so I can go before work. And then, like, feel like I did something before work, which makes work a little bit easier to handle, if that makes sense. Also, this is fun. Dale's car hit 100,000 miles because after last week's recording, we drove to Maine for lobster and prime rib.
Nice.
That was good. And then she was still like, I still have 100 more miles till it. So Monday night, we went for a lovely drive around to like old places where she used to work. Try to make it meaningful, right? As one of the people who's been in the car when I've hit 100,000 miles, right? Remember the old Saturn? That was a weird place to hit 100,000 miles.
Wasn't it some like weird intersection in the backwoods somewhere?
It was the intersection of 102 and 114. Either Foster, Gloucester, or maybe North Scituate. But like, yeah, out in the middle of nowhere. And that's because of, I wanted the first person who'd ever rode in my car when I was a driver, and the most recent, which was you. So we had a good time. It was a nice thing. So I made Dale's meaningful, but then as soon as she hit 100,001 miles, please get timing belt checked.
Mm-hmm.
And that like is supposed to come up once you go over 100,000 miles. That's how it's programmed. But then we brought it into the mechanic, and he was so mad. And he's like, I'm not mad at you. I'm just frustrated. First of all, it's a 4-cylinder engine. Why does it have a timing belt and not a timing chain? Timing chains will never need to be replaced or checked. They last the lifetime of the vehicle. Second of all, the fact that it says check is huge misnomer. It should say timing belt needs to be replaced. And then he showed us the timing belt. And it's like, oh, yeah, no. Like, it makes it sound like, when you get a chance, stop by your mechanic and that. And it's, no, the thing was, like, ready to break already. So Dale and I have been carpooling to work, which is fun because we work on opposite sides of the east and west of this state. So that's a good time.
Nice.
Nothing like driving to Bristol than driving to North Providence from Coventry.
That's just no joke, though. I'm glad that you guys got that sorted before anything bad happened because that shit can go sideways fast.
My mother's Ford Escort, right? So we're talking like in the 90s, the car she used to drive, had the timing belt break. So now we take that shit seriously.
Yes.
Because you're not wrong. If one of them breaks, you're fucked. Like the fact that car we still were able to get like 3 more years out of was really impressive. So
yeah, but I'm sure that you paid basically the value price of the car in order to
replace that thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was not.
Yeah.
So we take it serious. As soon as it came up, it's like, all right, so we're going to drop your car off at the mechanic in the morning and I'll drive you to work. As unhappy as it makes me to say that I will have to do that, you need to drop your car off. You need to take this shit seriously. And I liked seeing the anger.
Check your timing belts, folks.
Yeah. The mechanic's anger at the fact that, like, I don't know, Chevy's screwing you over by putting a timing belt in this. This is a timing chain engine was really kind of nice. It's also kind of nice to find that there have been advancements in engine technology in the fact that it's a chain now. And it's metal. It's not rubber. It's made to last. It's made to synergize better with the engine. Like, it kind of makes me happy as a human. Like, I'm not going to lie to you.
I honestly, I think it might actually go in the other direction. I think we started with a chain because like 4-cylinder engines are like the original.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Go up to V6s till later, and metal chain makes much more sense in the early days, and then moving to a replaceable belt obviously sounds like some asshole's idea of advancement.
Yeah. Well, it's belts, and they're cheap. I'm going to check which came first, which that's fun. Timing
Excellent.
chain
Good radio.
or timing belt. Let's see. Come on, Grok. Yeah, every 4-stroke engine used the timing chain in 1966. And they were followed by the introduction of timing belts in the mid-60s. Yeah.
There you go.
So there you go. That's very interesting. Yeah. 1962 Glass 1004 was the first mass-produced vehicle to use a timing belt. Oh, no, wait. So timing belts came first. That's crazy. Regardless, it's one of those things that it's how engines work. They need the timing belt in order to judge it. It's a huge part of the engine. And yeah, so they're I don't know, but it was good. So it's getting fixed. And
when they break other shit. Like there's such an important part of the engine that when they break, it's not the only thing that breaks. That's part of why you want to get it replaced before it breaks, because you don't want anything else to get fucked in the process.
You don't want it to snap into gears and break the gears and fall in, and then I don't. It's ridiculous. So that was fun. It was really fun getting the 100,000 miles. It was fun driving up to Maine and hanging out. We went to Bull and Claw. I'll give them a shout out. They're a beautiful place to eat. I love their food. We get to go around. Unfortunately, there was a winter weather event that was going to be hitting Maine the next day. So our attempt to retrieve some blueberry milk from the supermarket was for naught because they were sold out of milk. It is every New England state that goes to run on bread, milk, and eggs. Probably not eggs this time.
Storm comes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But it was very interesting to see. Like, first of all, we're driving to Maine. It's like winter weather event. God, we cannot get stuck in the snow trying to put miles on your engine. Trying to have a fun little road trip after recording. And we also got to stop at some Targets, and they didn't work either. But geez, it was a good week for like Dale and Devon bonding. We drove places, and then we played that game, and yeah, that's the big stuff. I can't think of anything else. Well, American Dad finally over. What Great Advancements was one of the alternate history episodes where that was good. If you have not seen What Great Advancements, I'm going to give a little bit of spoilers, but the first 15 minutes of it was a silent cartoon. So there was music because silent cartoons but there was no speech. And every time somebody spoke, it came up with what they were saying. And Stan was playing an inventor who lived on a farm and dreamed of going to the big city. And then once he got to the big city, he invented an item that allowed people to speak. So the fact that it was a silent world was part of the plot of the episode. So that it went from being a silent black and white cartoon to a talky black and white cartoon. And then by the last third of the episode, it was all in color because Stan had invented a way to make things colorful. It was really a nice homage to the history of animation in a lot of ways.
Wild.
But again, also a nice, because at the end of it, he ends up going back to the farm, but the farm now being in color seems less dreary. He can see the beauty of the farm. So if that ends up being the last episode of American Dad, and again, I'm just waiting for Fox to outright say, yeah, we're going to air American Dad. I'm just being honest about it. I'll be there. Also, I have to correct myself from last week's American Dad thing. I said they added Grover Cleveland to the show. They added James Garfield to the show, which is good because they also added briefly Charles Cateau, the man who assassinated Garfield, and that was because Garfield went rogue. So they've had some fun with it.
But also, I bet Hulu could also get in on that.
I wouldn't be surprised. American Dad, that's where Futurama has been the big reminder that Futurama was on Fox, went over to Adult Swim, went over to Comedy Central, and then it wound up back at Fox with new Hulu episodes. There's been 2 seasons of Futurama on Hulu exclusively. They haven't been the greatest episodes, I'm going to be honest. Some of one or two of each season has really soared, but it's not as, I don't know. I have complicated feelings about Futurama as a show that I used to love, and At some point, it kind of feels like you're just puppeting a corpse, and it's scary. And I'm scared of that happening for American Dad. I'll admit it. So even if it doesn't show up on Fox over-the-air broadcast, I wouldn't be surprised if it showed up on Hulu. But again, I don't like everybody saying it's all but certain that this is happening. That's not news variety. When it's happening, then tell me. So that was the other kind of big thing, was like dealing with that American Dad of it all, and that was enjoyable. Did you see the new Beekeeper movie? That's not really a Beekeeper movie. It's just a Jason Statham film.
I have not seen it yet, no, but I'm excited to. Yeah,
I am too. I'm probably
Working
gonna
Man.
Working Man. I'm thinking I'm probably gonna find a time to do it over this next week, so we'll have that to talk about next episode. I can't think of anything else, unless you have anything. There's one more thing we have to do before we're done with this episode. So,
Not much left. No, other than that, the only other big thing this week, is there's a couple of YouTubers that have been doing a Nazi nutshot run in Sniper Elite 5 on on YouTube for the last couple of weeks. That's been an interesting, I think in response to the current climate about things, they felt the need to make sure that they made their stance pretty clear in like the whole like fuck Nazis concept. And so they've been going through Sniper Elite trying to just get testicle shots, which for anybody that doesn't know, the Sniper Elite series is a series that is somewhat like Hitman, somewhat Call of Duty, right? Where you're dropped into a map, given objectives to complete. Most often those objectives are, kill this person, collect this intel, that sort of stuff. And then you can kind of basically open world within that little pocket of the world. You can do whatever to like, there's all sorts of ways you can do things. You can poison them, you can go up and you can snipe them from a way back, all sorts of stuff. But one of the big things that Sniper Elite does is that it does X-ray kills in the vein of like a Mortal Kombat. If you get a really good critical shot on somebody, it will go into X-ray mode where everything will slow down. It will follow the path of the bullet, and then it will show you an X-ray of the body as the bullet passes through it. And they'll show you all sorts of stuff. You'll see, eyeballs pop, brains explode, lungs explode. Like it gets gory. Like it is a very gory thing in an otherwise pretty interestingly historically set like concept, right? There's a lot of really interesting stuff about what you're doing and what you're collecting and the characters that you're like going after. There's famously I believe Sniper Elite 4. There's a Hitler mission where you just basically get to go snipe Hitler. It's crazy that they alternate history that one. But one of the more famous things that they do is the testicle shot. They do a full-on X-ray. You see everything and you see balls explode. And so bringing it back around, these YouTubers have just been doing a fuck Nazi run where they just go around and try and get as many nutshots as possible, and they've been doing a nutshot counter and all of that. So that's been a pretty wild ride. The Only Ryan, 2 N's, and Muyskerm, Muyskерm. Those two have been doing that together.
if you want to send me their names in our chat so I can add them to the tags, that'd be appreciated. I will say this also. I didn't think it needed to be said, but the opinions of the Say Report, I think Sejohn will co-sign this. Fuck Nazis, right? We're not fans of Nazis here at the Say Report.
100%.
I mean, honestly, it's crazy that we're in a political moment in this country where it does feel like, man, we should probably make sure that we make our opinion known that, like, go fuck the Nazis. But yeah, let's take that brief minute. And now that we're talking about that side of it, this is a terrible segue. I'm not happy with the segue. I'm actually going to be quiet for a second before I bring up this next part. Because before we throw this one to Will and end the episode, we got 16 minutes that we have to dedicate to a series. So we'll recap of Suits LA. If it's a one and done, then that's all we'll say. But if it gets renewed, we're going to keep on doing it. Suits LA. Oh my God, I dropped the timer. One sec. Sejohn Vamp while I pick up the timer. It's under my desk.
Okay. I'm curious to hear where we're going with this. Devon was very adamant that it needed to be saved for last this time. So I don't know if this means this might be the end, folks.
No, it's not the end. It hasn't been renewed, but we are going to keep on doing it. I got the timer. 16 minutes on the clock. Who sent us bagels from New York? That was the big question in the latest episode of Suits LA. Because somebody sent to Black & Associates a box of New York bagels. And we all know that New York bagels are the best bagels, Sejohn. And why are they the best bagels?
Because they boil them?
Because of the water. You boil bagels, that's how you make bagels. But the water that they boil them in.
There is a growing number of places where you can get bagels that have just been simply baked. Grocery store bagels and things like that have just been baked. I wish that it were true that boiling bagels was the standard, but unfortunately that is not the case.
Even the bagels that I cooked when I was an overnight baker at Dunkin' Donuts, like there was a boiling part of that whole thing. That makes me so sad. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that we're trying to make things go faster. But yeah, it's the water. It's the New York water that makes the bagel, spectacular and superior. And that was how the episode opened, was somebody sent us bagels from New York. God dang, Suits LA. What are you trying to do? So the murder trial of Lester has finally started. Lester is on trial for murder of his partner. And they're in the courtroom, and everything is going hunky-dory until the prosecutor, Miss Elizabeth Smith, introduces the fact that Lester was going to get divorced. And even though the whole divorce proceedings were thrown out and a divorce never happened between him and his wife, because the reason she was filing for divorce was believed that he was a killer, and then he proved that he couldn't have killed the guy based on the fact he didn't have his glasses on, they still wanted to subpoena and get all of the transcripts from the divorce because someone at the LA Times had written an article about those divorce papers and the fact that there was a divorce. So then that triggered something for Amanda Stevens, Maggie Grace's character, the blonde, who's somehow been roped into being second chair on this murder trial, this defense trial. And she remembers that, like, the person that she's a diehard for, Davenport, who was an innocent man. We don't have the full story on the Davenport story, but by her accounts, he was an innocent person who was sent to jail and then killed while in jail with a shiv. So she feels like you sent an innocent person to jail to die. You might as well have killed him yourself. That's why she has a history with Elizabeth Stevens. In the trial of Davenport, the same exact tactic happened, where an article was released by the LA Times, and then because of that article, it meant that evidence that shouldn't have been admissible in this particular trial was then public record, so it becomes admissible. Crazy, like a crazy thing to happen twice in two trials. Turns out Elizabeth Smith, the prosecuting attorney, that's one of her go-to moves. She has something over this reporter over at the LA Times, and she feeds him fake news stories so that they will become published, part of public record, and then she can introduce evidence that otherwise wouldn't have any, like, bearing on the case that she's currently arguing.
What? That seems highly...
That seems highly unethical and, like, morally fucking bankrupt. And, like, even then, like, so they find the guy, Kevin, the investigator from New York who has the long history with Ted Black. He goes and he finds all the proof that he needs to do it. They get a signed affidavit from the reporter saying that this is a tactic that the prosecutor has used in the past, and he has been the reporter she has used in the past in order to keep making this freaking abortion of justice continue to happen. And the judge is like, I am not happy about it, but unfortunately, while it is ethically wrong, it is already in the public record. We can't go back and make it so that this article wasn't published. So she has legal bearing in order to insert all of this information as evidence against your client. But you could see how angry Judge Mosley was that this woman has been manipulating justice by paying off a reporter to print bogus stories in order to make evidence, like, usable in the court of law. Like, the huge freaking ethical issues there. But then, along the same time, because Kevin was doing all of this research, he found Lester's statement to the police, and it was one of those word-for-word statements as to what he told him and Ted as what happened that evening. To the fact that it felt like it was from something already, like he lifted it from some movie or from some script or something. So that's how Entertainment Law got involved. Because this whole episode, I know that this show is already shot and in the can, but it really does feel like they're listening to me when I'm like, you need to get this thing done. You need to focus on this. Stop giving us B stories that have literally no bearing on what's going on. Focus on your one compelling case. And that's what they did. This whole thing was about the Lester thing. A little bit like Ted in New York in 2010, but really just showing why Kevin is so devoted to him and willing to do everything that he does. And also the who sent the bagels, but that's going to be the final cliffhanger of this recap of the episode.
Nice.
So Kevin goes to the head of entertainment law, Erica Rollins, and he's like, look, I need you to read this because you're the head of entertainment law. Do you recognize this story at all? And as we know, Erica knows fucking nothing about the entertainment business. She's just a really good negotiator. So, of course, she immediately goes to Leah, the little blonde-haired woman who's, like, also a lawyer, but, like, somehow lower. Like, they treat her like she's a paralegal. Like, she doesn't have a full law degree and, like, hasn't passed the bar. It's very strange how they treat her on the show. So she's like, I don't know anything about entertainment. I need you to read this, and I need you to tell me if it's from something. So she reads it, and she goes, no, this isn't from any known show or script. And she's like, oh, thank God. I thought that, like, we were in real trouble. And she goes, yeah, but Lester works in the fucking entertainment industry. There's a chance that it could be from some script that he was pitched that he never bought, right? Like, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist in something that's been made. So then Erica had to go across the, territorial lines to talk to Ricky, the guy who abandoned ship with Stewart to go to Baxrail Lane, and say, I'm going to read you a statement. You tell me if it's from anything. And as she starts reading it, he peppers in and continues to read it and finishes the whole statement. And he's like, oh God, is Lester trying to get that movie made again in the middle of the law trial? In the middle of his murder trial? And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, I've heard that 1,000 times. It's from this script that Lester wrote. And I'm sick of it. So then, yeah, so it's a fucking alibi that he fucking wrote from his own goddamn script.
Oh my God.
So now it's all questionable. Oh, is he telling the truth? What's going on there? So they end up hiding Lester. Ted ends up doing something ethically a little bankrupt as well, because he ends up sequestering Lester at his house so that they can get a day in order to find more proof about the reporter. Because they're like, we think he may have ran. He's like, he hasn't ran. And then they make up this whole story about Lester was having chest pains. So he went to his physician, forgot his phone. Here's a signed affidavit. Like, honestly, this was almost called the affidavit report, but I'm not dedicating an entire title of the Say report to an episode of Sued LA. Not yet, anyway. But they said affidavit so many times in this episode. I'm like, I don't know what that word means anymore. But they had a signed affidavit from the physician saying that Lester was with him all day. That's why they couldn't reach him, because he thought he was having a heart attack. Turned out to be a panic attack. They're all playing dirty pool, right? Which is hard in a show like this, because we literally talked about a demon and how demons in like Western culture, a demon is always a devil and it's always bad, right? I remember conversations I've had with like youth pastors where it's like the devil's always trying to hurt you. And I'm like, yo, if the devil asked me for a ride to the airport, I might give the devil a ride to the airport. I don't know how that's going to hurt me in the long run, other than the eyes of your friggin' house of worship. Like, I don't get it, right? Like, how can everybody be worthy of forgiveness? I am vamping and I'm sorry about this, in like the way that certain religions preach, but then there are characters who are like all completely without reproach, right? These are some of the reasons why I have issues with like religious teachings, right? But like, even in this game where like you're servants of a demon in Gal Guardians, they do like this really good job to making sure that like the demon's not all bad. But in Suits LA, everybody's kind of morally bankrupt except for Kevin the investigator. It's a little strange. So then also in the past, this is kind of a big deal. So he's getting ready to propose. Ted is getting ready to propose to Samantha, and he's like, I got the ring. I'm real ready to ask her and all this other stuff. And that's how it starts. He's having breakfast with Kevin. He's talking about how he's planning on proposing to Samantha. And then he has the house full of candles, to the fact that it's a fire risk. Like, you should not have that many candles in your little apartment, Ted. I really hope your apartment doesn't burn on. And there's a knock on the door, and he's like, oh, that must be Samantha. But also in previous episodes, it kind of looked like they cohabitated. So the fact that she would knock on her own door seems strange. Just little inconsistencies in the script. I'm just going to mention that. And he opens
Definitely
the door.
weird, though.
Yeah, right. He opens the door and it turns out it's Kevin and Pellegrini. That's the name of the mob guy. Pellegrini had the comedian who did impressions from the second episode. He had him murdered. So in case you don't remember, he used an impressionist comedian who Samantha represented. Why a comedian who's still like doing open mic nights has an entertainment lawyer? Sejohn, we basically create entertainment. Do you have an entertainment lawyer as a member of the Say Report?
No.
No.
To be fair, we also don't make a lot of money doing this, so it's not like we really need the protection.
That's true. I also got to say, like Cameron, the guy, it didn't look like he was making a lot of money either at the win. Like it was just like one of these weird things. But they used him to pretend to be somebody who was killed in an explosion in order to convince another member of Pellegrini's team to turn state's evidence. And now Pellegrini found out and killed that poor, impressionist. And he's dead. Geez. And they have mentioned, he's like, if this is about what happened to Cameron, like in a fight with Samantha, that had come up. And I'm like, oh, so Cameron's probably dead. And then that's what it seems like led to the breakup between Ted and Samantha, is the fact that Ted, in his wild pursuit for justice on a federal level against a mob boss who was killing people, accidentally, unintentionally got one of her clients murdered by said mob boss by bringing him into that world. It was kind of a like, what the fuck kind of moment. I'm not going to lie to you.
That is kind of insane. Yeah.
Yeah. So back in the real world or modern times, as it were, Rick and Erica are talking about maybe getting the thing that we used to do before together thing back going. Like, they're fooling around, whatever. They're hinting at that whole thing. Meanwhile, Amantha Stevens is mad that Ted is playing the same exact type of pool as the district attorney. She's like, look, I want to beat her, but I don't want to become her. Basically, if you hunt for monsters long enough, you become a monster. She doesn't want to do that. So she's not happy that Ted, in what is literally his first defense trial, is stooping to such morally, like, gray actions as to hide their client and make it look like he might be missing so that they can, get more time on things. The whole thing is like making me question. My mother had originally wanted to be a lawyer, but she said that the reason she didn't follow that is because of just how like bankrupt and gross the law is as you're taught it. Like she took law courses, but then she's like, oh, lawyers are not like these huge shining beacons of justice. It's a lot of like finding ways to work within the system to get what you want. And that's sort of what Sus LA has been a lot of. Like, is weird to like hyper vilify a district attorney in so many ways. That being said, we have 2 minutes left in this recap. Sejohn, you're going to get to choose your own adventure this. Would you like the big cliffhanger, or would you like to know who sent the bagels?
Oh, I thought that was the big cliffhanger. What's the big cliffhanger?
So the big cliffhanger is Kevin, armed with the evidence that Lester has used a exact monologue from his purchased script as his explanation for what happened, goes to his house and he's like, you're going to tell me the truth right now, and starts like threatening him with physical violence. And Lester, not right before the credits roll, but before some beautiful scenery shots of LA happen, admits that he killed his partner. So the mystery that has been driving the first 5 episodes of Suits LA, Lester killed his partner. And then the credits rolled. I killed him. I killed my partner. I was like, oh, okay. Which really does lead to my whole theory that this was made to be binged. This was not meant to be released on a week to week. Because honestly, all I wanted to do was see the next episode. Because like it was kind of an unsatisfying little... And then the fact that it wasn't, that's it, I killed him, I killed my partner, credits, but then they showed like 4 or 5 establishing shots of LA at night, just felt very much, you're going to just start the next episode right now. You're not going to wait. So that was weird. And now I'll tell you who sent the bagels. Samantha sent the bagels. Because it's tradition. It's the start of the trial, and we always have New York bagels before the start of a trial. I love that they made it a big mystery as to who sent these bagels. And it was literally the most obvious person. So that's Suits LA episode 5. We'll recap Suits LA. If it gets renewed, we'll drive off the bridge when we get there. But right now, that is all I have to say. It's Suits LA on the Say Report. And no, it's more like I just like putting it in other areas. Like I want the Suits LA to kind of be like a little Easter egg to find each episode. And I wanted to focus on all the other stuff that I wanted to talk about because recapping Suits LA, it kind of kills my energy a little bit. We're going to do these 13 episodes. We'll cross the bridge when we get to if it gets a renewal. Though, again, things are not looking that great. Also, in terms of renewals, hint for next episode, in addition to talking about the Switch 2, because mark your calendars, the Switch 2 Nintendo Direct is coming this Wednesday, April 2nd. And it'll probably have more of note to talk about than the Direct that happened this week. That, like, Sejohn, can you name one thing that came from the Nintendo Switch Direct this past week?
They mentioned some stuff about Metroid Prime, right?
Yeah, Metroid Prime 4 did get mentioned. They also mentioned the Gradius collection that's finally going to add a third Salamander game, and I'm scared because those games take too much away from me. And also, I think you can like lend me digital games now. Yeah.
Yep. Within the family, and since we are in a technical Nintendo family, but they're doing something with game lending and game sharing. They're dipping their toe into that to see what people can do, and I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see how that will work differently than it currently does.
Yeah. Well, because you can do it with digital stuff as opposed to needing a physical cartridge. That's the big change. So now I'm interested for the Nintendo Switch 2 if maybe they're not going to have physical cartridges for Switch 2 games. Like, testing the water for something
what
crazy.
They might do,
like,
what they might do is they might try and convert your Switch 1 library into a digital library, maybe.
That'd be interesting. I'd really love that. But we'll find out. So we're going to talk about that. But then the other thing is we're going to give at least 5 good minutes to Beyond the Gates. You're familiar with this? The new soap opera that Paramount is doing?
Yeah. Weirdly, I can't believe you heard about it. I just heard about it from a group of the people that are very much into that kind of television.
Exactly.
But what did...
Well, someone asked me...
we're not prepared to talk about this.
No, and we're not prepared to talk about it. It was before recording, somebody had asked me if I could find information on how the show is doing. Because it doesn't seem like it's doing that well. But honestly, it also kind of feels like the show where it's okay that it's not doing well because it does mean content almost constantly for both the streaming service and the channel. So it is something that I have said we're going to look into. So we're letting people know that we're going to look into it. But I was not prepared to do the deep dive into the research that would be required of me. If that makes sense. Before the show. Because it literally, someone had asked me that right before I sat down in the chair. So we're going to give 5 good minutes to Beyond the Gates. Because I haven't really watched it. I've seen some of the promos. But I am curious how it's doing after its first month, basically, on the air. And other people are too. And they're like, Devon, you can figure this out. That's the thing you do. I guess. So we'll find out what happens next week. Nice. Anything final, Sejohn, before we send this one over to Will?
No, let's send this one away.
All right, cool. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Say Report. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can feel free to join us in our Discord server, invitations to which are available wherever we are on social media, which as of this recording is Facebook and X, formerly Twitter. And if you're not on either of those social media platforms, I get it. You can always send an email to thesayreport@gmail.com, and we will facilitate you with an invitation to join the Discord server, or you can just correspond correspond with us via email. And if it's for me, Devon Decker, or him, Sejohn Sarwick, just make sure you put our first names in the subject line, and it will be distributed appropriately so that whoever you don't want to see your most personal thoughts and questions will not see your most personal thoughts and questions. Without any further ado, we will see you next episode, and William, please bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Sarwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.